What's up, boys and girls? My name is Cowwy and welcome back to the Carrot Club. In today's video, we're going to talk about building simple objects using parts with tools provided in Roblox Studio. When people start learning about making games, they are typically really excited and want to dive straight into the code and make the next big game just to find out that nothing inside of the studio makes any sense. One of the most important learning steps to mastering in Studio is knowing what each feature does. If things are confusing and mysterious to you, ignoring or avoiding it won't help you make the game, because the reason why you run into that problem in the first place is because your game needs it. The trick is to understand why things work and practice a lot to the point where you can confidently say you can build anything. And all of this starts by knowing how to build simple things. So with that, let's get started. To follow along in this tutorial, I have added the studio file in the description below. It has all of the building objects in this video so that you can go ahead and examine them. Download that and you're ready to go. The first thing we need to understand about making games is knowing how objects are put together, so that when you start learning how to code, you'll know how to interact with these objects and you can use these objects to test your code. If you don't know how to use Studio, I suggest you watch my crash course video to learn more about the basics. So in front of me, I have Studio open with 4 simple objects on the viewport. We got a standard wooden table, then we got an outdoor chair, a really old-fashioned chair made out of hardwood, and finally we got a street light. We're going to examine each of these objects and dissect the building techniques required to build them. The first technique that we're going to be talking about is the most basic form of building, and that is to simply move parts together until they look like the object you are trying to make. For example, the wooden table and chairs uses this simple technique. If I break open the table and display all of the individual parts by itself, you can see that the model is only built using rectangles and cylinders. The trick to building is to make it look like the things you want to build. If you can achieve that, you can build a lot of things just knowing this. Another example is the birch chair, which by itself looks a lot more complicated. Again, if we break this apart, you can see that they're all rectangles, cylinders, and wedges. And ultimately, it is how you use these parts that will make your model look really good. The second technique we'll be looking at is union part, which basically means combining multiple parts together and turning it into one part. So this is what a union part looks like. We're going to take a look at the pine wood chair here. The only part we're interested in is the seat. The rest of the chair is basically cylinders and spheres. If you look at the seats carefully, you'll notice that the corners are rounded and there are no other parts you can select. To see what the seat is made of, we need to use the separation tool inside of the model tab. The moment I hit separate, you can see all the outlines from all of the different parts that were used to create this. Also on the Explorer window, you can see that it is made up of 6 different parts. Now if I move the parts around, you can see that the seat is just a collection of rectangles and cylinders again. So there's nothing really fancy about these really good looking models, they are just really cleverly put together. To put it back together, simply move all the parts back in place, select all of the parts and hit Union option. This will reconstruct the objects, turning it into a single union part. The last technique we'll go over is the negation tool, which is a very powerful tool to create complex parts that you normally cannot do by combining basic parts together. Let's take a look at the traffic light for a moment. The only thing we're really interested in is the green light. You can see that it is formed by 2 parts. One is the green neon sphere and the other is a union light box. If you look at the light box very closely, you can see that this is not just a simple box. All the edges is nicely cut out at an angle. Something like this wouldn't have been easily made with just parts alone. If we separate this union part back to its original component, you can see that there are these weird red parts surrounding it. Even the icon in the Explorer window is red. By separating the two, we can see the original dark box and the red part here. This is called a negative part. And their purpose is to erase a portion of another part. Now I know this sounds really confusing. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to separate this even further, breaking it into 12 individual parts. I'm only going to take one of these parts and I'm going to put a hole inside of the box. The negative part will erase a portion of the box, leaving a hole in the middle, like this. So now you have a box with an awkward hole in the center. You can use as many negative parts as you like to sculpt the shape you like. Although I don't recommend you do that, there are better options and tools to make better models, which we'll cover in another video. To create a negative part, all you need is a normal part, and in the Model tab, click on Negate. This will turn a normal part into a negative part, and then position it where you like things to be erased. Select them all and hit Union, and there you have yourself a new part. So knowing these 3 techniques, you can create a lot of basic objects for your game world. There are limitations as to what you can build with it. Anything with curvatures like a human or a sports car would be incredibly difficult to build using these techniques. To bypass that problem, builders typically use a different software called Blender or any other 3D modeling application to build their models. But for now, this is all you need to know to get started and gain some experience working with a studio. If you keep building and practicing, you'll eventually get better at it. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If this helps you out, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. That will help me tremendously by letting YouTube know that the video is being helpful to the community. It also gives me extra motivation to continue making these videos. So thank you boys and girls for watching, and I'll see you in the next video in-game or at the Carrot Club. Take care everybody.